Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming. Welcome to the Graduate Student Research Panel. I'll be hosting today, and I have with me here Anessa Albert, our Associate Director for Communications. Um, my name is Ricolette Freckleton. I'm the manager for Scholarship and Awards, and I'm looking forward to speaking to four of our panel members who have agreed to share their research and scholarly experience with us today. We will be asking them questions that you've already submitted, and if time allows, we'll also ask questions that you've submitted to the chat. I'm going to ask our panel members to come on camera. I'll give a brief bio of each of our members, and then we'll go into the questions. Perfect. Thank you so much. We're going to start off with Michael Marlatt. Michael is a PhD student in the Communications and Culture program. He works on the lived experience of students and alumni of North Americans moving image archival education programs who identify as having a disability, chronic illness, or are neurodivergent. He's working with programs at TMU, NYU, UCLA, and the L at Jeffrey Selznick School of Film Preservation on the project. He has been interviewing students and alumni who identify with the above topics on topics such as admissions, campus services, training, internships, and career prospects after postgrad, and comparing these interviews from program faculty members and how accessible they feel their programs currently are. We also have Parisa Karimi Tari, who is a PhD student in biology, who's working with Dr. Stephen Connor. She has made substantial progress in her projects focused on studying how forgetting takes place at a synaptic level. During this time, she has made great strides in many technical, analytical, and writing skill set as a scientist through studying mechanisms supporting removal of information or forgetting them from brain circuits. She has made several important discoveries into the cellular mechanisms of forgetting by characterizing the process of LTP decay in rodent hippocampus, a brain structure essential for memory formation. We also have with us Braden Brickner. Braden is studying film here at York University. He's a filmmaker and writer from Whitehorse, Yukon. In 2014, Braden adapted the world-famous poem by Robert Service, The Shooting of Dan McGrew, as a short film which has since screened throughout North America. Braden also co-wrote and produced the TELUS-funded web series, The Cyborgs, and is co-writing the new comedy horror web series, Sophie the Exorcist, along with adapting the Canadian webcomic Wolf Hands to the screen. His latest feature screenplay, an adolescent comedy horror adventure called The Little Friggers, is currently in development. Braden's thesis screenplay project is a 3-episode package of an original fantasy adventure series called Ellen and the Five Fathers, which follows a young woman navigating the fallout of her parents' separation. We also have Ahmed AlSayed Mahmoud. Again, I welcome you all. Thank you so much for our panelists. We're going to just start by asking all our panelists a few questions. So the first question that we have that's been submitted by our students is, what inspired your decision to pursue either the master's or doctoral program degree here at York? And I'm going to start with Michael.
It was a couple of things. One, I'm a trained film archivist, worked in the field, and saw that there really wasn't a lot of discussion and representation that really went on talking about disability, chronic illness, and neurodivergent. I myself am a film archivist with epilepsy, so I kind of had some of those experiences in my own education. The reason why I chose York specifically was really because of the communication and culture program. the connection that there was between TMU and York. So I really wanted to work with the film program, but also have those connections with the film preservation program at TMU. So that was, and I went through York instead of TMU just because of the funding opportunities that were available here at York versus TMU in terms of like TAing and whatnot.
How about you, Parisa?
So I've always been very passionate about research, and I always felt that I wanted to gain more understanding into underlying causes of different disorders. So it was never enough for me to just know, if there is a disorder, how can you treat it? But I wanted to be able to look into cures or what causes a certain problem to begin with. So I always wanted to do some research into that area. And as I got interested in that, I started working in volunteering in different research labs, and I found my passion in neuroscience. And so I decided to pursue in more depth that field. So that basically sparked my master's and now my PhD.
Braden?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. I originally I did my undergrad at York University, so there was a level of comfort that I got or I had with the faculty in the film department at York, and coming back to do my master's here felt important because of the connections I had started with the faculty and beyond, and um, what I could continue to build on in a professional screenwriting career in Toronto, where there's so much television happening and especially animated work happening. So
Um, let's move on to the next question. So we discussed why you chose to do a master's or your PhD, but why did you choose York University? Let's go again with you, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I made a little bit of a hint of that in the first question, but a lot of it had to do with just being able to do interdisciplinary work. I had looked at other programs like School of Information programs and worked and looked at like film PhDs and whatnot, but I really felt it was the interdisciplinary nature of the communication and culture program at York that allowed me to kind of widen that scope so that I could work with various departments. Like I said, like the film department at York and the film preservation program at TMU. So that was really why York came to mind and why I ended up going here.
And Braden?
York specifically, because of the and this is going back to when I joined as an undergrad, was the just how renowned the film department at York was, and just being centered in a city like Toronto, where there's, like I said, so much industry happening, and at least for me, being able to connect to the professional side as well as the academic facets of the faculty and the administration.
Okay. And how about you, Parisa?
So for me, or I would say in the field of science and research, it comes down more to choosing the right lab rather than the right university. And it was so basically I did my research based on what lab suited my interest in research best. And York does have a very diverse set of faculty researchers in Department of Biology who all do amazing and interesting research. So that was great for me, and I found a lab that was great match to my interests.
Okay. So prior to applying for the program, what kind of research did you do that led you to choose a university? Let's go with Braden.
That's a good question. I part of it was that I wanted to work on something that I couldn't work on or couldn't uh, didn't feel like I could develop how I wanted to, like project wise, something I couldn't develop through um, like independent production funds or other film grants. This was something that was outside of what I had worked on previously and what I was known for, and um, taking it into an academic um, circumstance or into a university at the master's level was an opportunity for me to um, grow as a writer in a way that I hadn't before or hadn't as an undergrad and hadn't professionally, and using the resources at the school, like at York, which I had already been accustomed to because of my undergrad. There was a level of comfort in bringing a project like this back to York to continue working on it. That answers that question.
Okay. How about you, Michael?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question very briefly?
Sure. Prior to choosing which university to go to, what kind of research did you do? Just deciding where to go.
So I made sure that I really wanted to stay in Toronto. I mean, this is where I'm from, but it's also my partner has a career here. So it's not like I wanted to just, uproot both of us, right? So she has her career as an archivist as well. So I took a look at a lot of the universities here in Toronto. I looked at U of T, looked at TMU, looked at York. And again, it was just the communication and culture program, being able to work with both schools that I felt was the best fit for me, and just taking a look at what faculty was at each university and looking at their work and who I wanted to work with over maybe necessarily a particular school.
Did you actually speak to any of the faculty members by chance?
I did, yes. So I would reach out and talk to some faculty. And I already knew some just through my professional circles as well. So I already knew some of the faculty.
Okay. How about you, Parisa?
So I would say similar in terms of I wanted to be in Toronto, but I also I definitely took the time to contact different faculty members, go through their websites, go through their recent publications in terms of gaining some more insight into what type of research they do and what techniques they use to see which one I might be the most interested in. For the established labs, I also tried to contact students who were currently enrolled in or part of those research labs to kind of gain insight as to how the lab runs, what kind of culture it has, and all of that. And that really helped me in making my decision.
From what I understand, Ahmed did his Master of Science and PhD at York U, and he is currently in civil engineering.
Just very quickly, I did my master's and PhD at York. I just defended my dissertation in August in civil engineering. Mainly my major is environmental engineering and wastewater treatment. Yeah, I'm happy to be with you. That's very quickly what I have.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, and so sorry about that. Let's please go ahead and pose the question to him.
Oh, sorry, Ahmed. So Ahmed, when you were deciding on choosing a university, what kind of research did you do? What was your process?
My background is in environmental engineering in general. That's where my undergrad was. So what I was looking for is, in my field, environmental engineering has different areas like air quality, water quality, water resources, different areas. So my research was to look into different universities and different faculties, what they offer and what opportunities do they have. York was standing out, one of the unique universities, and has very good program in the area of water quality and wastewater treatment, where I did my master's and PhD in. And yeah, that's what was one of the main reasons why I joined York University.
Okay. And I'm still on you, Ahmed. Did your undergrad degree prepare you for grad school and the program specifically?
I am as you said, that was the right part from my bio, is that I'm international. So I did my undergrad in a different country. I think it helped, but what was really helpful in my graduate studies here at York is I had enough courses to for the transition from like the undergraduate studies to the graduate studies. It was really helpful, and we had a variety of courses that actually prepared me to my graduate studies. So I mean, my undergraduate courses was basically introductory, I would say, but the transition and the focus was mainly in the graduate studies.
How about you, Braden? Did your undergraduate degree prepare you for for grad school?
Yes, yeah. Short answer, yes. I think um, what also prepared me was, just the uh, experience in the industry that I had before going to undergrad, and then in the couple years after. So it was a lot of things, and also just coming back uh, to do my master's with some more life experience and stuff to bring into what I want to write. So
Okay. So one of the other questions that we received was, how will real world experiences help me as a grad student? Alternatively, would I be better prepared for grad school with real world experiences? So I'm going to pose that question to Michael.
I would say 100%. I took a number of years before going back to graduate school. I think like over 10 years ago, I think. So it really did help for me to kind of try and figure myself out about what I wanted to do with my and who I was. And I think for the longest time there was this idea of you needed to go straight to university right after high school, then do the 4 years, then do graduate school, and then finish everything by the time you're like, I don't know, 24. And I think that you really need to need to take that time to kind of find yourself, unless you're absolutely certain what it is you want to do.
I see you nodding, Parisa. How?
Yes, I completely agree with Michael. I also took I took a year after my undergrad before I went into my master's, and after my master's, I took some time working before I started my PhD. And it is grad school is a big commitment. And it also makes you very specialized in a specific field. So it's good to be certain that that is the field you want to go to, and know what goals you have for your future career. So you know that the education you choose aligns you with those goals. And that may not happen immediately when you finish your undergrad. So it's completely okay. And it's actually great to take some time, have some real world experiences to prepare you for that. It also really, in grad school, you do have to be fairly independent and be able to troubleshoot. So that level of maturity that comes from facing different challenges in a real world or in other jobs might really prepare you well to face those challenges in grad school as well.
Thank you. So back to you, Ahmed. What has been the most memorable part of your grad student journey?
I think it's I mean it's a lot, but I one major thing, because like I did my master's and PhD, it has been I mean a long journey, is as Parisa was just saying, how independent I became, and the transition from just being kind of a fresh grad coming out of the undergraduate school, um, moving forward and having to be more independent. I would say even graduate studies are kind of challenging, self-challenging. You have to rely on yourself, challenge yourself sometimes, and push your limits. And I think having through all of this, and the times where I had a little bit of some failures or some setbacks in my research, and then moving around and standing up and doing it again, yeah, it creates a lot of. At that time, it wasn't a very good experience, but now it's a very pleasant experience, and memories going through this experience and good studies.
Thank you. Braden?
Most memorable experience? It's actually quite recent. I've having the opportunity to be a teacher's assistant is part of it, but also learning to, or starting to widen what I'd like to do. I'm helping to teach a game writing course, so getting into video game writing and interactive narratives has been kind of not something I came into the program thinking about, but as I've gone through 3 semesters now, is something that's become a large part of the work I want to do. So yeah, that's been huge.
Thank you. So this question is actually for me. What types of scholarship opportunities exist? So there are a lot of opportunities that exist at York University. We have internal awards, we have external awards, we have research funds, so such as the Academic Excellence Funds. We have funds that are tied to the union that you're in. So we have QP funds such as the Research Cost Fund. We also have bursaries that are based on financial needs rather than just academic excellence. So there are a number of opportunities. What I normally say to students is that once they've decided to start the process of, once they've started the admissions process, they should start by looking into the scholarship opportunities. For instance, right now, actually today is one of our deadlines for SHIRK, which is for doctoral students, and the students who are applying now are seeking to start their award as early as May of 2023 or September 2023. And we have awards, say for instance, external awards ranging from for doctoral students, $20,000 up to $50,000 for the Vanier. And we have Ontario Graduate Scholarship for master's and doctoral students for up to $15,000 per year. There's also funding components involved where like Michael and Parisa and Ahmed have mentioned, where there are assistantship opportunities, teaching assistantships, same with Braden. We have that where once you have been granted admission, you will be told if you will be funded. So it's just a matter of what kind of funding you're looking into getting, but we have a lot that's available. So we're going in the same note. We're going to start talking about your experiences as teaching assistants. So how about you, Parisa? what is your overall time commitment to teaching each week?
I would say it depends on what role you have as a TA. So I've been a teaching assistant where I've taught labs for biology courses, or I've been a marker for some courses. And when you're a marker, so of course you'd be marking when there are assignments or exams. So on some weeks there may be no work. Versus when there's a midterm or final, you might have like 10 to 20 hours of marking to do in 1 week. So it might be really concentrated in a couple of weeks and you might be just done with it. Or if you're teaching a class or a lab, then it might be 3 to 6 hours a week during the semester.
How about you, Michael? How's your time commitment been?
Good. So yeah, I TA'd for 4 years. I'm not TAing this year because I won a fellowship so that I don't have to TA and I still get my funding. So there's also Fieldwork fellowships out there. When I was TAing, it was probably about 10 hours a week because the type of courses I had was, holding tutorials. So attending lectures, actually hosting the tutorials, doing the readings, planning, and on average it was about 10 hours a week, but I would say definitely more so during, exams, during essays, when you're doing a lot of grading, I found was definitely more than that 10 hours. But I was also someone who was I tried to be very, very specific with each student because it was a first year course that I was TAing for so long. So I wanted them to make sure they had the fundamentals so that they didn't get to third and fourth year and not necessarily maybe have the writing that they may need by their upper undergrad years. So it's just my experiences.
How about you, Braden? Are you a TA? You're muted.
How about now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just started last month. Yeah, it averages about 10 hours a week so far. And yeah, I'm mainly leading tutorials and yeah, attending lectures as well, and working with the professor. It's a relatively new course, so there's still some room to suggest things and work together with the other TA and the professor about how to go ahead with the certain lessons and concepts. So yeah.
Ahmed?
Yeah, I have been teaching all my time doing masters and PhD, and I think it varies based on the duties assigned by the course director and the nature of the course. But more or less, in average, it's 5 to 10 hours a week at maximum. In some cases, towards the end of the semester, it goes up, and at the beginning of the semester, it's the other way around. But yeah, more or less, it's within that range.
Thank you. So I'm gonna come back to you, Michael. What are some of the differences between graduate and undergraduates, grad school and undergrad? As a grad student, did you participate in any of the activities that enhanced your student experience?
Um, hmm. I mean, in undergrad, again, I was a lot younger, and I had a lot more of I think a social life that's a bit different than now. Now it's more so hanging out with my friends who have kids and going to the park with them. I did get involved with some programs or some opportunities at York, like there's the archive counter archive that works about getting representation in the archives from underrepresented communities. But I don't know, it's been a bit more of a hands-off, I think, as a graduate student than necessarily as it was during my undergrad.
Braden?
Yeah, I mean, there's a, um, sorry, can you repeat the question? I don't wanna go on a tangent.
What are some of the differences between grad school and undergrad? And as a grad student, did you participate in any activities that would enhance your student experience?
Okay, yeah, it's definitely, like Michael said, very hands-off, self-directed. The classes are much different. When I'm thinking back to my undergrad classes, the classes now are very, um, I feel very, this might be the wrong way to describe it, but like group oriented. So we're all presenting to each other, and it's a lot more discussion based than of course lecture based. Yeah, I'm just trying to think back to. It was a weird case because I was coming into my undergrad having worked in film for a while, so it felt a bit backwards, but um, yeah, there were definitely things there that I became involved in with like the wasn't called the film club, like the cinema student society I was involved in then. So putting on screenings and hosting talks and screenplay readings and stuff like that. So
Okay. Sorry, is anybody here living in housing by any chance? No? Oh, Ahmed.
I used to live in two different housings. Assiniboine, the buildings, and at Kinson buildings. So like for the 7 years I lived in on campus, yeah.
And what has your experience been like?
It's good. I mean, the main benefit is being on campus, so you have access to your work without commute, without worrying about environmental conditions or anything. It was good. I wouldn't say it. I mean, it's regular. The regular expectations for a housing, student housing in a university. It's not like super luxurious or similar to how it looks like in downtown, for example. But I think it's good enough for a student to focus on his studies and very convenient being on campus. Yeah.
And just a little bit about the culture on campus. How's the experience in terms of food and transportation been for you? I'll go back to Braden.
well, I remember before the subway stations went into campus, and that was not great. But now that the subway does go right to York's Kiel campus, it's been awesome. Yeah, in terms of amenities, yeah, I feel it's all there. I mean, um, I hang out at the library a lot. There's a grad lounge in the film CFT building that I'm at a lot, and those I know I take advantage of all that stuff, especially the subway, uh, all the time. So yeah.
How about you, Parisa?
Yeah, I would say I commute with the subway, so it's great to have that option. It's very fast. I mean, there are days that, it's delayed or everything like that, but overall, I would say it's great to have the subway going directly to York. And there are a lot of different food options on campus, so you can find any kind of cuisine you're interested in.
Michael?
Well, I haven't been on campus much in the last 3 years, but yeah, like Braden said, I remember pre-subway and having to take the 196 from Downsview and the really long lines and the lineups going all the way to Very Hall. Um, so I have memories of that as well. I know the last few times I've been to campus, I've noticed that there's a lot more health food options than there used to be. It used to be all kind of just fast food and that was about it. So it is nice to see that it is a little bit more health conscious on campus than it once was.
That's true. All right. So, do you ever feel a burnout? How do you deal with the feeling of being behind and overwhelmed, all competing deadlines and priorities? Let's go with Parisa first.
So yes, I don't think you'd find too many people who would say they've never felt a burnout. Grad school can be very intense, as can any kind of situation. Even a job can be the same. It's For me, it's been, there are times where you, especially in my line of research, is you can do experiment after experiment and none of them will work for a while, and that can really weigh heavily on you because you don't feel like you're making any progress even though you're trying your best. And you can't figure out why, and you have deadlines or committee meetings coming up and you're worried about, oh, do I have enough data to present? And For me, it's always helped to look at the big picture and remind myself of what the goal of the project is, and remind myself that yes, a lot of projects fail and that's completely okay. Not all science has to lead to positive results. Negative result can just as much help advance your field that positive results can do. And it's always good to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Thank you. And Michael?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met a grad student who hasn't felt burnout at some point. If so, kudos, but I've never met that person. Some strategies is, I think, at least find one person in your cohort that you can kind of rant to, and then they can rant to you. I think that's helpful. Taking time to perhaps find some sort of hobby that is not related to your program whatsoever, whatever that might be. And also just learning to say no to things. I think when you're a grad student, you start getting all these opportunities like, oh, there's a conference here. Oh, there's a book chapter here. Oh, there's an article here. And you kind of need to learn how to politely say no. Like, for example, even just this morning, I had presented at a conference a few months ago and they were just like, oh, would you like to do like a chapter for a journal based on this? And I just kind of had to politely turn them down just because I really wanted to get focused more on finishing up my dissertation.
Thank you. We have a question. The question is, what mental health resources are available for grad students? And I'll go ahead and respond to that. So here at the Faculty of Graduate Studies, we do have wellness consultants on staff, and they are available to speak to students throughout the term. They're very accessible. You would just need to reach out to them, book an appointment, and they'll be able to walk you through the process and provide valuable resources. The university as a whole also has wellness centers and SAS is there for accommodations, disability accommodations and such. So we do try to cater to the wellness of our students. We do understand that, yes, there will be burnouts and there will always be competing priorities. Deadlines are always just hidden. So we try our best to see how we can provide wellness resources to our students. So with that, thank you, Vanessa, for providing the link in the chat. We'll move on to the last few questions. So how do you keep a social life as a grad student, especially during the pandemic and now coming out of the pandemic? Ahmed.
I think like the pandemic was like at the beginning was very, I mean, we weren't familiar at all with any resources, how we can socialize or keep up with the remote life in general. I think is with everyone getting familiar with the virtual communication, I think it's always helpful to keep in touch with everyone in the team. Make sure to have a group meetings, being enrolled in many activities as much as possible. one thing I always do is just like, when we were in person all the time, you used like to move around other lab members, or I mean, other students in the same group or the same department, I mean. But now, since you are not physically together, just take some time to say hi, to schedule like a 15 minutes meeting, just like to say hi, check on friends. If you can even take the initiative to organize some group meetings or stuff like this. It doesn't sound like very clear or with a very clear objective, but just seeing people saying hi would have been really helpful. Also during the pandemic, specifically, just talking to other students, knowing that they are struggling with the same thing that you were struggling with, was very helpful. Everyone sharing ideas to how can they proceed, and um, being able to accommodate this new restriction is really helpful. So yeah, I mean, socializing and communicating with others would have been very important. And one more thing, sorry for taking a little bit more time, is I mean, York, based on my experience, it has a lot of cultural clubs and a lot of even faith-based clubs or whatever. I mean, so feel I encourage different students to reach out to whatever clubs they are interested in and start to communicate and build more community around them. That would be definitely helpful to be integrated and keep up with the, I would say, based on my experience, the international life.
Thank you, Ahmed. How about you, Parisa? How's your social life during and after the pandemic?
I mean, during pandemic, I didn't have a social life. I also had a baby, so that really, really limited my social life. But now that we're getting more or less back to normal, I'm trying to reestablish some of the social life I had before pandemic. I would say as a grad student, you spend a lot of time with if you work in a lab with your lab mates, you spend a lot of time in the lab together and often have your lunch together, or if you're working late, have your early or late dinner together. And that's great because you're all going through the same thing. You have a lot in common. So that for me, that was my main social life. The great thing about the way our lab was positioned, and I noticed a lot of biology labs in York being positioned, is that the student areas from several labs are usually together. So like, for example, our area is shared between 3 labs. So all of the students from those 3 labs actually get to communicate with each other and spend some time together. And that really helps because the university is so big, there are so many students, it's hard to make some meaningful connections with a lot of people, especially if you don't have too many courses. So I find that's actually a really good setup where you can spend some time with students from your own lab and also a couple other labs and kind of develop a social network for yourself.
Thank you. So Ahmed, you're our international student on the panel. So this question is, as an international student, how did you integrate into the Canadian culture? Were there any welcoming resources or services provided at York?
I think York International provides a lot of resources that are really helpful at the beginning. I remember like first arriving here, it might be very overwhelming, like a lot of discussion about too many things that, I mean, different than how it works in whatever country you are coming from. But generally speaking, they were really helpful, welcoming and supportive. So I encourage whoever is just like just coming here is to reach out to them, and they were really helpful. That's one thing. The other thing I would advise is just like to reach out to community. I mean, York University and Canada and Toronto in general are very diverse, and you would definitely find some communities that is similar to your culture and background. So the help finding such communities, reaching out to such communities helps out with the transition, and is very supportive. And the third thing I remember is just like don't get overwhelmed with the I mean, take your time to get familiar with the culture and how it works. It takes time, but eventually you'll get there somehow with everything.
Thank you, Ahmed. Um, so this question is for Michael and Parisa. How independent is the research of the students? Do students work together and or with their supervisors very often? So we'll start with Michael.
I would say it depends. It vastly based on the type of person you are, the type of person your supervisor is, the kind of project you're working on. Like with my supervisor, I know I can check in with her at any time that I need to, but I'm a lot more of a hands-off, independent kind of person. So she knows that, you know, that we can communicate whenever, but it might not be as much of many of check-ins as I know of other students who need that connection with their supervisors. And I know that can sometimes even be contentious. I know some people who, you know, they had their supervisor because it was based on the work they were doing, but the relationship just, the personalities just clashed. So I would just say, like I said, it just vastly depends on the type of person you are and the type of person your supervisor is, at least in my experiences.
Parisa?
I agree with Michael. It definitely really varies depending on your supervisor and your own personality. I would say that in grad school, you should always strive to be more independent. So that should be one of your goals as you advance in your career. You should be moving towards being more independent, but nobody expects you to be in doing independent research when you first start. In your first year, definitely get as much help as you need. Even if your supervisor is very busy, always try to get help from more advanced students or postdocs who are in the same group, because you do need that help when you first start. As you advance in your degree, then you can become more independent. You can strive to problem solve yourself and not need as much help. So that's something that comes as you progress through your degree. I would also say that I mean, it always helps to work together. So it's always good if you have a good relationship with your colleagues, with other students in the lab, because all of us will need help at some point or other. So it's always good to know when you ask for help, and don't be too shy to do that, because everybody needs help at some point.
Thank you, Parisa. Okay, so we're about to wrap up. We have two last questions that I'm going to pose to Michael and Braden. So, Braden, what do you wish you knew before you began your studies in grad school, master's?
To kind of dovetail off of the previous question, I wish I knew more about what the relationship between your supervisor and yourself could be, or what you might need it to be. So coming into my MFA and putting my project together, it took me some time to figure out what my plan was and what I needed from my kind of support team or from my supervisor. And knowing that sooner, or knowing that before I went in, would have helped me kind of land on both my feet a little sooner, instead of I felt like I was catching up last year, and I still feel like I'm catching up in some ways. I'm sure that doesn't really go away, but yeah, just that relationship and what I'd want out of it. So.
Thank you. How about you, Michael?
I was going to say that everything takes longer than you think it will. I mean, a good example I can think of is the ethics clearance on my end. Because I'm working with multiple institutions, I needed to get ethics clearance not only from York, but every institution. But it was a lot of back and forth where York was like, okay, so you need your ethics clearance from the other institutions. And then the other institutions were like, okay, but you need your ethics clearance from York first. So there was a lot of emails and waiting. And even that is just an example of there's going to be a lot of times where you're just going to be waiting for things.
Thank you. All right. So for students, this question is for all of you. For students who are considering applying to grad school, what advice would you give them to submit in order for them to submit a successful application? Let's start first with you, Parisa.
Okay, so if you're just considering grad school and you haven't finished your degree and you still have a year or so left, I would say definitely work on learning some of the skills that you need in the program you're interested in. If you're, for example, in biology, volunteer in a lab. Even for a few months, it really helps to get you familiar with the basic techniques and so on, and it'll make that lag in the first year where you just need to just learn techniques and wait for things go a lot faster. If you're just considering applying and you're just working on your application, make sure that you include strong reference letters. Make sure your referees are willing to provide not just any letter, but a strong letter. So make sure you list people who know you very well, know the skills you have very well. And also definitely get help in writing your personal essay. Have a couple of people read it, proofread it for you, get some feedback to make your application as strong as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Ahmed?
I think several things in addition to what Parisa said, and I think everyone would say, is I think I'm not sure if this is the case in different majors or in some specific one. Don't hesitate to reach out to the supervisors you are interested to work with. That's definitely is helpful. That's one. Second is based on my experience with different undergraduate students or people with not big experience in graduate studies, is that they tend to leave out some details because they think it wouldn't be of that great importance or significance to the supervisor. But you never know what you will never know what exactly is your supervisor is looking for at this point. So try not to eliminate things based on just your anticipation. I think also to prepare early for the application, be aware of all the deadlines, have somebody review your application and read it a couple of times before you do it. That is definitely helpful. I think those are the main things I think should be done.
Thank you. Braden?
Yeah, all those things are really useful and important. I'd only add, and this might depend on the program, but thinking about this definitely helped me as I applied, was to think about what kind of perspective I was bringing to the program and what I'd want to, even if my project changed, what I'd want to keep researching and talking about and writing about, because you want something that's going to keep you inspired and keep you something that'll keep you working towards that goal of graduating in your research. So
Michael?
Yeah, I think someone may mention to it earlier in the presentation, but applying with the program in mind, then not necessarily the school in mind. And I think that's a lot different than perhaps in undergrad when you're really looking at the university and then the program within it. Whereas in graduate school, I think it's more important to look at the program and then the school within it. Someone already mentioned, a couple people already mentioned strong recommendation letters. So definitely going to people you know quite well. So if you're still in school, make sure you're going to go to office hours, even if you don't necessarily have a question, even just to take a couple times to chat with the professor to get to know them a little bit. So maybe your reference letter won't come from a preeminent expert, but if it's someone you know quite well, they're going to be able to write a more personalized recommendation letter. And yeah, I think that's what I got on my end.
Thank you for that. And the same goes for your scholarship applications, right? Start planning for your references, start reaching out to supervisors, start finding people who can speak to your strengths and your academic abilities, because while you're submitting your admissions applications, you should also be submitting scholarship applications so that you can at least secure additional funding prior to coming into the university. Thank you so much, Michael, Parisa, Braden, and Ahmed, for taking the time to just sit with us and talk about your experiences. I really appreciate it. I know it's crazy busy for everybody, so just the opportunity to just like sit here and talk to you has been great. I'll just hand it over to Anessa just to close off.
Thanks so much, everyone. Ricolette, you literally took my role. I was supposed to thank them. I'm joking. Thank you so much, Michael, Braden, Parisa, Ahmed. Your journey through grad school thus far can really help our future students understand why grad at York. And that's really the question that we're trying to answer and to share with them realistic experiences. So I really appreciate you guys being with us today.